Hi everyone, it's Jen here. Thank you so much for watching Really Rooted. It is a beautiful day here in central North Carolina. It's about 80 degrees and the dogwoods are blooming. The unfortunate thing though, or the fortunate thing depending on how you look at it, is the forecast for the next 3 days calls for some heavy rains. So I will not be able to enjoy these dogwood blooms for long. Because the rain really can damage them. So I wanted to give you a little bit of a tour today, but please keep in mind we just returned from an extended vacation and I do have a lot of work to do in the garden, so forgive the weeds, forgive the ivy on the trees, things like that, if I'm being honest, the garden does create a little bit of anxiety for me. But I think with all beautiful things comes hard work, and I'm grateful for it. Let's go take a look at these dogwoods and a few of the other things I have blooming. So these dogwoods are just magnificent. And you know, they actually look better with a little more cloud cover, but I'm afraid we're not going to have that today. And I wanted to capture them before they rain. I think the contrast with the Japanese maple is just really impressive. And I know the camera isn't doing it justice, but let me get a little closer and to one of these dogwoods and I will show you the flowers. So we moved here about 5 years ago, and for the most part the garden is fairly immature with the exception of a lot of our trees. This is the flower. Isn't it magnificent? I mean, they're just glorious. We do have quite a bit blooming in the garden for early April. You can see anemones here. They're just about done. I have some hellebores that are finishing up. I do have some other things in here that will pop up as it gets a little bit warmer. Over here I have a peony with some buds on it, as well as some muscari that's fizzling out and some more anemones. Hostas are coming up beautifully. And then let's go take a look at this azalea. Now I want to tell you, I did not trim this azalea this year after it bloomed, and it looks, you know, a little chaotic, but it's still beautiful. I did not want to trim it late in the season because when you do that, you take the chance of not having any flowers. So with this particular, or with any azalea, you want to trim after they bloom, but before July 4th. That is the rule of thumb, and that has always worked for me. This one is a very old azalea. We do have 2 on the property. And there are several of them planted here. I could not tell you how many, but they're just glorious. It says spring and Easter and all the good things. We did move a bird bath from over in the rose garden over here. The problem is my hose has a difficult time making it out here, so we've got to do something about that. I don't know if you can get a better view of the dogwoods in the background of that Japanese maple, but oh, it's just lovely. So most of these plants in here, other than the dogwoods and the Japanese maples, these are fairly new plants. So it is still a very immature garden, and I still have a lot of work to do. This was all planted new, with the exception of the oak leaf hydrangea. This is a plant that was labeled as a climbing hydrangea. However, it is not a climbing hydrangea. I believe it is some kind of viburnum. And when I found out it wasn't a climbing hydrangea, I moved it, but I had no idea it would get this large because, of course, I did not know what it was. But it just has some of the prettiest blooms on it. Over here we have some iris beginning to bloom, as well as some hostas coming up. I did plant quite a few more plants in this area this year, and as it fills out, I will know where to fill in the gaps. Because it does need some more work. It does need some more evergreens, but I just really like this part of the garden. It's a very unique space. Oh, and I do have on my slinky trellis, I do have a clematis blooming, and I'm going to eradicate a lot of this ivy because it's a constant struggle to keep it in check. So if anyone has any tips on how to do that, please let me know. The climbing rose is doing its thing, and it has lots of buds on it. I don't know, let's see if I can get closer here. And we hope that eventually it will go over the top of this porch area. And I do have one on the other side. Oh, here's some of the buds. And are those already aphids? Yep. On this side, I have another one that does not do quite as well. One of the problems is these pin oaks just kind of suck up all the water, and they're pretty damaged, and I'm considering taking them out, but I want to replace them, and I want to know what I want to replace them with before I take them out. So if you have any suggestions, let me know. And I hate to take out mature trees, but every year we have to have somebody come in and cut the dead limbs off of them, and that gets quite expensive. And then this one has damage around the base from the ivy. There's the mirroring azalea over there that was planted before we moved it in. And then I have a white one that gets a little more shade that hasn't quite popped. We do still have some tulips, good tulips, and a few daffodils coming up. I mean, you know, they're at their end of they're not at their prime anymore, but it's interesting to see all of these unique things blooming at one time. Over here we have the rose garden. I did replace the smaller bird bath with this lady. Isn't she just lovely? And I need to get 4 more roses for this center area. My boxwoods are still working on that hedge. Phoebe, out of the garden. Have a beautiful double daffodil up here. And then some ascari. And this was just planted this year, so I think that's why it's coming up late. Or I'm sorry, not this year, but this last winter. Now I need to move these irises, and I'm going to cut these and bring them inside, but they do need to move. I have started moving them, but they have gotten too tall, so keep that in mind when you're planting your bulbs. Some more daffodils, a ranunculus, a peony. We've planted some new shrubs in here, an azalea. And yeah. And I will give you a view from the front here. So it's always exciting when I can show off my garden and show off how far it's come. It's a labor of love. But isn't that gorgeous? Okay, thank you so much for watching. I hope you're all having a fantastic spring. And I hope that you know that gardening is a difficult job, and if you're having doubts, just stick with it, because things do come together eventually, and it just takes a lot of work and a lot of patience. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day. Bye.